the Egyptians. Embryo and the consent of the parties is very essential. In the case of IVF, the egg is of the mother and the sperm is of the father, so there is no real third party involved. But there are times when there is what is called donation of eggs or donation of sperm. Now, as much as the agreements are set across, there are people who are now coming in, used to come in from Europe and wherever, to get donations here of embryo and even surrogacy. Then there was problems because it was not done in the right manner. The law was not there to recognize or to establish agreements. And I think this particular assisted technology bill is going to put this thing together and to give the right of assisted productive technology to the people and to the parents, and give them the rights of the parents, the rights of the donors, the rights of the children, and rights of the community, and rights of the country. As my sister said just now, Honorable Imal, my dear sister just said, this is not a way open to bring LGBTQ or same-sex parents to have a children. No, it isn't, and nor should it be. It should have its respect. It should have technology. I see here that they're talking about technology with intersex persons. The consent of assisted reproductive technology services and the duties of assisted reproductive technology expert. So what we are trying to do here is to make sure that there's a framework, to make sure that there's a template, and to make sure that all those aspects that have been previously left unattended to and unclear in law. Mr. Speaker, so you're a senior counsel, and you know very well that somebody adopts a child, and then somebody after a long process comes back and says, no, this is my child. I think one of the cases that we know was the...
Honorable Shakil, how long do you need? Because yours is a personal testimony.
It's a personal. If you could give me another minute or two, sir.
Yeah, so give Honorable Shakil Shabir 2
minutes.
And maybe also educate the House on how the process goes.
Yes. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Mine is a personal testimony. Sir, we went through the whole process, as I said, 4 times. And each time we were losing, we would lose the battle. But we developed a knowledge. First time we were very, very, very green at this. And we were just taken through, and we were told, and actually at one time, we were being treated like guinea pigs at a very good hospital, but like guinea pigs. And there was nothing, nothing different between ourselves and what they were doing for maybe animals. This was about 15, 20 years ago. That has redefined itself. These things have been improved. And people have been able to put a much assisted reproductive technology. So by the 4th time, we were able to it's a long process, Mr. Chair, and it's a very painful process, especially for the mother. And to go through that process, Mr. Chair, it really needs a lot of strength. And Mr. Chair, even at the end of it, we were not sure, even at the last trimester, whether we were going to be able to save all of the children. So it is only the strength of the hospital and the strength of the people who are behind it and the professionality of what it was done that we were able to go through. It's the professional. So the fact that we will have now a directorate to whom we can go and complain and those people who are probably went through and were making big money for no reason and treating you like animals, that is finished. Also, we want to know, I want to make sure of, Mr. Chair, because when I was coming, Mr. Speaker, sir, when I used to go for these sessions, and I would see a lot of young girls coming and donate their eggs, and they had no strength, and they had no right in law. This will give them the right in law. This will give them at least this is the first step of us taking this matter forward and making a sense of it and joining the what we call the cutting edge technology of assisted reproductive health. And from that point of view, Mr. Speaker, I'm a very pleased man today to support this bill. And as I've given my personal testimony, Mr. Chair, I stand here as one of you who has benefited, and not one time. God has been great. It was the issue of assisted technology requires God's blessing. It cannot be done without that. So I am very proud, Mr. Speaker, sir, to say that I'm a father of four-year-old children who are a gift to us and through assisted technology. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you. Whereas, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this. Mr. Speaker, this bill has actually come here. This is the third time and has lapsed. But it's an extremely important bill. So, Speaker, the objective of this bill is to regulate assisted reproductive technology. Now, what that basically means is to assist couples or people who desire to have children and are not able to assist people with infertility. Basically, what it means, that technology assists the eggs or the ovum from the lady and the sperm from the man to come together. Fertilization takes place, an embryo is formed, and this embryo gets itself into a womb that is biologically ready to grow it into a baby. Basically, that's the problem. Normally, that is the issue. Normally, this would happen naturally, but it may fail either because the sperms are not there in the man, or they're there and they're not functional, or the eggs are not there in the woman, or if they are there, the system that brings them together fails, or the womb itself is not ready, or in some circumstances, after surgery, the womb has been removed, but the lady would still want to have a child. That technology is what we actually are talking about. Infertility is a very serious problem. It affects couples. It affects even people who are single, who would like to have children as single parents. And many times in our societies, it has actually affected women more adversely than men, because in couples, when fertility is a problem, when reproduction fails, often the woman is blamed. In almost all languages, there are very derogatory words for that, and therefore the women suffer. And in men, when it also happens, it has its problems. And there are large numbers of people and couples that are affected, and therefore they need this service as a medical service. As Mr. Speaker, what is happening now? It is actually going on in this country, and sometimes people have to travel outside the country to get the services. But the problem is, as that is happening, there is actually no regulation. And yet, this technology has a lot of issues with it. If you talk of the medical issues, the harvesting of embryos from women, particularly young girls, who offer to the harvesting of ova, particularly from young girls who offer to give the eggs, it's a surgical procedure. They have to go through it. There are legal issues that are involved with it. The sperms that are given, often they are sperm banks, but sometimes they are specific offers. There have to be laws that regulate that. And when you have these sperms form embryos, this embryo becomes available. It can actually be used to produce babies, or it can actually go into research. And some of these will bring a lot of ethical issues. And even when it is used, it brings issues of multiple pregnancy or multiple embryos that are produced at the same time. And as Honorable Shakila said, this can go on to produce multiple pregnancies. And sometimes there is even need to reduce this. And what is the ethical situation where you're actually killing a living embryo? That's an ethical issue, or even a legal issue together, going to the Constitution in the definition of when life begins. So these are issues that we have to look at. There are issues like the sex selection. At the time that you have the embryos, people can choose which embryo they let grow, which sex they want. Would it be right if now you choose, I want this sex, and therefore I'm going to destroy this embryo? Now, those are issues that will come. Mr. Speaker, there are issues of using surrogate mothers where actually wombs can be hired so that the mother, the person who carries the baby to term is actually not the mother who had the ovum. And so this is hired either by a couple. When that happens, it then brings the issue of parenthood. Who is the mother? And what are the legal implications? How do you agree? And Mr. Speaker, these embryos can even be stored for use into the future. Now, what are the laws that will regulate that? And who will store it? When people are sick, young people are sick and they may die, they may say, I want to store my sperms, or I want to store my eggs, or an embryo is produced and is stored for future use. Now, how will this be controlled? This can even come into a business. And if it becomes a business, who is selling what? How are you getting into surrogacy?
You need more time? We will, because you are a medic. How long do you need to explain this to us better? I'll give you 2 minutes, Dr. Nyikal.
So the future use, if there is business in this, and what about research? People can start to manipulate genes because these embryos are, it would be as ridiculous as even trying to use embryos from different animals, and it makes it, these are possible. So that has to be regulated. So, Mr. Speaker, there are all these issues that are necessary, even the health of the people that are involved. It is therefore necessary, Mr. Speaker, that we have a law that regulates this. And to that extent, I support this bill. It creates a directorate. It creates the licensing of who will use it. It creates how you can manage the sperm banks. It creates for how long you can keep the embryos. It creates of what kinds of agreements people have to go in if you are going to have surrogacy involved. Or even when parenthood is involved, later on the child may want to know their real parents. What are the legal implications of that? And what are the legal implications in terms of inheritance? So, Mr. Speaker, this is a health service, but it has so much social implications that it needs proper regulation. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, I support this bill, and I ask all my colleagues, we support it and make it an act to guide what is already happening now, but happening illegally, and we do not know the extent of the illegal activities that are going on. because we have no law. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Dr. Nanikal, just before you sit, how do you deal with the matter of parental responsibility in that context, or in the context of surrogacy?
Well, our law, in the case of surrogacy, if there is surrogacy, what I think is proposed in this bill, and that will follow, is that there's an agreement that once you have given the child up after the surrogacy, then you actually know parental responsibility. But there's an issue of, say, a young man who donated a sperm and later on he finds themselves a parent. What is the right of the child? Our Constitution says that there is parental responsibility whether the people are married or not. So what happens when, as a young person, you are just donating a sperm, 30 years later, this person says, you are my father. What are your parental responsibilities? I want a piece of land because you are my father. And the DNA is there to prove this. So, Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving a little more time. But this is an interesting thing. Let us support the bill.
Is the MP for Mwaya and defender of teachers is recognized? Proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And thank you, Honorable Nikal, for giving a great insight into this bill. And Honorable Speaker, this assisted technology in reproduction has been ongoing and for the longest time. It's just that it has been happening behind the doors, possibly under the table, sometimes happening outside the country. Originally, the people involved would think that is a big secret, and therefore they would do it in the underworld. And partly the result of this, Honorable Speaker, has been that the pricing also, the monies that they pay is extremely high. In fact, the Honorable Member for Kisumu would have spoken on this a little bit more, and is hearing me. You will notice that the pricing sometimes was extremely too high and not affordable for the ordinary citizens who are still suffering or are having such a challenge and cannot access this service. And therefore, mainstreaming it and bringing a regulatory body that will actually deal with the matter also demystifies the many stigmas that may have been associated with this assisted reproductive technology. And therefore, once mainstreamed, it will be easy to access, and you'll be able to be accessed at a reasonable price, even for the poor families and those who cannot afford. But above all, Honorable Speaker, is the issue of managing the system, because there are a number of risks that may arise from this, and this bill, I think, tries to mitigate those many risks that are likely to arise by those who actually get benefit of the assisted reproductive technology. But the extreme end of this, which I thought I should have brought last, but I'm bringing it early enough, is the fact that we have to look at this thing very, very carefully. As we mainstream it, and it really requires regulation, we can end up also having a population of new humans that will have no necessarily attachment to a father, mother, and finally they will grow up, they will know themselves, Honorable Speaker, they'll start associating themselves. So as you speak about you are a Luhya from Western, and you speak about your Kikuyu tribes are mentioned here, and even the Constitution, and Luo, Honorable Speaker, they will get their own name of tribe, which will also exist. And they will demand for certain rights. They will also demand for certain spaces, and so on and so forth. And they will form unions like myself, and they'll form political parties, and there will be a force in this country. Remember, Honorable Nikala has spoken very strongly about the multiplicity of this technology, so they can multiply very fast. And if they multiply fast enough, especially if they are not killing the embryos, as we shall be doing within the bill, then they will grow to a much bigger population and actually do away with those of these other populations that is otherwise using the normal reproductive system. So those are some of the you must look at this bill from a very imaginative position. It is beyond what we are seeing. And the regulation is also very important, as Nikal Daktari has explained, because also those scientists and researchers are also likely, unless controlled by regulation, produce even a superhuman being who will be a merge of certain sperms, either from the men and possibly other animals, because they are there. They have all these sperms, Honorable Speaker, not only for humans, but they also have for other creatures, and can even produce a super person who will start cannibalizing the existing human beings. You see what I mean? So this is great. It's beyond just what you are thinking today. It can go far and far and far and produce other human beings, Honorable Member for Kibera, who will now consume you, and you will become extinct, and the world will just move on like that. So creating a regulation and a directorate to actually monitor this reproductive system then becomes very, very important, so that it is within the management of the existing human beings who are there to manage how this business, not really business, but this reproductive system will go. And the worst of it is also when, it's not worse, another angle of it is when it will become a business, so that you will go to a store and they tell you, I have several embryos here. This one is for Mavoko. Mavoko used to look like this and like that. This one is for Honorable Kaluma. He had these characteristics of arguing a lot and speaking a lot. And then you are selling these things on the counter. This is why it's very important to do a regulation. And also determine for how long can an ovum or a sperm be used. Because some people may even store these ovums and these sperms beyond the time when the person even lived. So he's already dead. But they are reproducing that person because they are having a store of these people. And what are the legal implications of the person who comes out of that? Because he will now go and face the existing family and ask that, you know, I'm also a member of this family, even 20 years thereafter. Honorable members, are you following me? This is serious. So as we make this law, don't take it as an easy matter. It's a matter that will actually affect the generations to come in totality. Honorable Speaker, with those many remarks, I support the bill.
Thank you, Honorable Mavoko Milemba. I want to permit former Minister for Internal Security, the Honorable Julius Nkuli, to make his contributions. But before that, allow me to appreciate Honorable Shakil Shabir for coming out in the open as a leader and as a member of parliament to confirm that this assisted reproductive technology is a reality and that it works. It is not some myth. I remember, Honorable Shakil, when I first met you when you begot your 4 children, and I'm happy the joy has never waned. You continue to be very happy. Now they are 4 years. So thank you for coming in the open, and I think it is an encouragement for those other Kenyans not to hide when something can help. The Honorable Julius Sunkuli.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to associate myself with those who are supporting this bill. This bill addresses the issue of surrogacy. And I think, simply stated, surrogacy is a situation where a woman carries a baby in her womb and carries the baby to term, but has no genetic relationship with the baby. And is carrying somebody's baby who does not have her genes. And this law introduces those 2 new terminologies. One is the surrogate mother who carries the baby. And the other one is the intended parent who therefore, or parents, who therefore take the baby as soon as the baby has been born. Now, this new arrangement, Mr. Speaker, has been now recognized by the law in Kenya because it has been going on. And because it has been going on with certain challenges. But first to say, Mr. Speaker, that the problem it's supposed to solve is the fact that infertility is a reality in Kenya. We all have this problem. We know somebody who does not have a child, but actually who desires a child. I know Professor Njikal and the two professors are distracting me a bit, but they desire a child. And there is no way they are going to get a child other than by getting a lady, a woman, who will carry the pregnancy to term for them. Now we want to solve the problem. And this problem has existed for many years. I think in certain communities, the Luo, the Nandi, even the Maasai, there was another practice where a woman who does not have children was allowed, quote and unquote, to marry and get a lady not in the LGBTQ style, but one who would be assigned to her as a wife, but allowed to get babies from somebody else. But the children would belong to the person who is supposed to have married her. Now the difference is that at that time, the person who is the intended parent has no genetical relationship with that child. But now technology has come where the genes can be exported and implanted into somebody else, and that child can be brought up as the child of the people who donated the egg and the embryo that will now get the baby. Now, Mr. Speaker, because of this new technology, this is actually widespread around the world. And for a long time, the people in Europe, particularly people in the UK, used Indian women to carry their children. And even in our society today, where there are some people who are rich and others are poor, it tends to be the case that the poor women are the ones who carry children for the rich men. Now, this law addresses one particular issue, and that is the issue of exploitation. So that when a woman carries a child of somebody else, she has to be adequately compensated. And compensated in accordance with an agreement, a contract that exists between the intended parents and the surrogate mother. Now, this law here addresses that issue. But it also addresses the issue where when the surrogate mother has gotten the child, she does not run away with the child. She does not say, now this child is handsome, I'm not going to give it to you. There is recognized in Kenya now surrogacy agreements which bind the surrogate mother to deliver the baby according to the contract. But it also ensures that the baby is well protected. There will be a situation where a baby with a disability is born, and the intended parent will say, this is not the kind of child I wanted. So the surrogacy agreement must bind the intended parent not to select the kind of child that they'll accept. That the moment a child is born of their genetic formation, that child belongs to them. These, of course, these are the things that this law is going to protect. And of course, it has been said here that there could be a situation where sperms are, of course, when a man gets an ejaculation, it usually contains a lot of sperm. And it's only one eventually will materialize into, pardon? Yeah, out of 5 million. So we have ethical questions to answer. You and I, Mr. Speaker, are Catholics. We don't know whether it will become ethical at some point to throw away what has not been used. And if you're going to store it, whether we can throw it away at some point without breaching the rules of ethics. This bill does not address that issue because this bill has been carefully drafted so that ethical issues are minimized as much as possible. But these are the things which we need to ask ourselves.
You are talking about the constitutional provision that life begins at conception.
That's right.
So in the context of assisted reproductive technology, you are asking whether the bill defines when conception begins in this context.
Yeah. This particular one has actually, we had an occasion to interrogate this bill, and this issue maybe remains. It does not stop us from passing this bill, but it requires in future times to answer that question. And of course, the issue that is raised by Honorable Mulema, that can we be able to get an animal and crossbreed with a human being? We are not yet aware that such science is available, but this bill forbids that kind of activity. And we therefore would like, Mr. Speaker, to say that this bill will solve many problems in Kenya. It will enable women who have desired for children, men who have desired for children, to now use the technology that is available. Many things of your interest, Mr. Speaker, will be at the definition page at section 2. A lot of things that I'm sure we will have to amend, including the meaning of a spouse as is defined in the bill. I think that will have to be simply a man and a woman who are married, not so that we don't put it as for the time being married. I think it's just a question of married, so that it does not exploit the women who are in a relationship. It has to be recognized that a marriage is just between a man and a woman, and that the word spouse must mean nothing else. There will be a bit of tinkering to be done here and there with respect to the bill, but the spirit of this bill, Mr. Speaker, is good. It will be very progressive for Kenya, and I commend this bill to the members of this House. I support.
Thank you, Honorable Julius Nkuli. I don't see any further interest in the bill. I wanted us to go to the Honorable Ruth Odinga, the women rep for Kisumu County.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I greatly thank you for recognizing that this bill affects women the most, and that you have now decided to allow a woman to also speak on behalf of this bill, the Assorted Technology Bill. And I'm very grateful for Honorable Millie Odhiambo for introducing this bill. For me, first of all, I'd like to talk to address the cultural issues that surround this bill. Mr. Speaker, as you know from where we come from, even in the culture of the Luos, it was very stigmatizing and has been a real big problem when there's a lack of a child in a marriage in Luo culture. And basically, as my honorable said here, that it also happens in other countries and other cultures. But in the Luo culture, it was always assumed or presumed that it is the women who could not bear the child. And therefore, the burden of proof remained with the women. However, in those days, it was allowed for a woman, especially if it was a man, to be able to secretly be given the brother or the cousin to the husband to be able to have a child, so that nobody could know in the home that the man was not producing. The other way around, the man was allowed to have another wife. However, the first wife, or the one who was not childbearing, would go through a lot of difficult times in that home. So, and also, that wife who could bear the child sometimes was allowed to be given the child of the second wife, or even she could bring the sister or the brother's daughter to get married to the husband so that she could give birth, and some of those children would be given to them. That is not in the case in these days. We all know that as we speak now, if you don't have a child, it is torment, and normally the blame is on the woman throughout. I therefore think and believe that this assisted technology would be able to support the women who are actually going through this, or the couples that have that. I'm a witness to Shakil Sabir's case, and he's my neighbor in Kisumu, and he has very beautiful children out of that, and I think that this, when used properly, could really help us culturally. On the other hand, medically, we all know that right now we have some of these rampant sicknesses like cancer that are amongst us here, and they come at an early age. We have those who get cancer even at 15, 14, 12. And mostly when they do this, they go through what you call gonadotoxic therapies. And these are therapies like chemotherapy, radiation, that actually destroy the sperm of the ovum. When this happens, these people will never have a chance of getting children. It is important to consider them. And in most cases, it would be fantastic if they could be able to have to get their eggs removed before the therapies are started, so that they later can be able to have children when they actually want them. So that is another fact that I think that medically is important. We also know we rapidly have something called endometriosis that really a lot of us women are suffering now. And these are some of the sicknesses that once you have, you are not able to produce. So it is important that medically we consider this technology to support those of us that cannot be able to get the children. However, I also agree, especially in the case of surrogacy. Having been in Europe, I noticed that there was a lot of issues that are now surrounding surrogacy, where those who actually agree to carry the child change their minds during the childbirth or after giving birth, and saying that I now want this child, when they were just the carrier of this child from the other couple. So this couple tend to have to lose or long court battles that end up also affecting the child, and that really brings a lot of issues of how ethical, how good is it for the child who now suffers because of this. So I believe, like Dr. Nyikal, who is an expert, who has discussed with us on the laws, that some laws, and the laws must be put in place for us to ensure that people do not misuse this assisted technology, especially in case where they want same-sex children and all that, which I don't agree with. But then let us have it, and for me, I support this bill. Thank you.
Honorable Faith Gitau.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this chance. I rise on the onset to support the bill. Honorable Speaker, it is quite a sorrowful thing for a couple to desire children, but yet be physically and unable to be blessed with one. It is really stigmatizing. And these couples really need a lot of social support and a lot of love. There has been a lot of things going on around inability to bear children. There has been unregulated practices of organ harvesting. You know, we have a lot of quacks around here in Kenya who harvest organs, ovaries and sperms, and sell to desperate couples in need of children. And it is very sorrowful. It is really quite heartless for these people. And these horrific practices must be put to a stop. Honorable Speaker, I'm of the opinion that proper regulations on how to deal with matters of infertility and inability to bear children must be put in place. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, I'm so delighted today to see this bill come up. And indeed, the use of assisted reproductive technologies must be put adequately and must be regulated. We know what happens around these technologies. Number one, they are not affordable. So we must make it affordable because there are couples who are suffering here in Kenya. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, I rise to support. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Wilberforce Oundo.
Honorable Speaker, thank you for this opportunity. I didn't conclude consulting Dr. Nyekal, but I'll take care of myself. Honorable Speaker, I stand to support the Assisted Reproductive Technology Bill that's before the House. And as another speaker has indicated clearly, this is not the first time this bill is coming to this House. I know it was here in the last term, last parliament. We were unable to conclude it. And I personally, Speaker, let me confess, I was a bit skeptical and I was uneasy about this bill. And when it was being debated on the floor of the House, I took a French leave deliberately because being a Catholic, being an African man, there are some issues we find very difficult to deal with. But with the hindsight, when I went back, I discovered even the larger network of our family, we have ladies and we have men who have been unable to sire children, get children through the natural process. And obviously it forced my rethink to come and make a comment on this bill. The bill provides several solutions to a problem that has existed with us for many years. Since time immemorial, there have been infertility in human beings. Where I want to say where I come from, we have had a way of solving these issues through established networks that have left the moral fabric of the society intact. But I must admit, new times calls for new approaches, and we must deal with it. Honorable Speaker, in my community, when a lady did not have children, the stigma associated with it had a lot of moral issues and would cause a lot of stress. More so, but again, more importantly, a man who could not have children either, likewise, had faced even more scrutiny and public shaming more than anything else. Of course, naturally, we had a way of solving that problem. A man who could not have children and was married could contract, let me use the word contract, so in that event, the kid will be born, resembling him, resembling the family, so there will be no suspicion at all. But of course, problem was always remained when the lady could not have children. We did not have an arrangement where a woman would marry another woman to sire children for them. So therefore, Honorable Speaker, we must find a way. Honorable Speaker, children are not just the physical children. Children comes with emotional attachment, and in many societies, children are an insurance. It's a welfare insurance in old age. We hope that we'll spend all our working life to take care of the children. When we are unable to take care of ourselves, the children will one way either offer moral support or actually support us in our old age. And that's why, Honorable Speaker, the mere title of the bill, reference to technology, leaves out an extremely important aspect of how we use the traditional way we used to solve this problem. Honorable Speaker, is married, The man that cannot sire children because of medical life has clearly put it. She contracts a cousin of the husband. So whose children do they belong? We thought then that particular aspect we could have actually institutionalized it, legalized at this particular moment, so that now when we talk about technology, of course technology found me. What I have about technology is laboratory. But what about natural process, akin to adoption or something like that? So Honorable Speaker, these are now the issues that when we come to the committee of the whole House, hoping we'll be given enough time and we'll have a bipartisan approach, we'll address these issues. Honorable Speaker, the bill has got very far-reaching issues. Number one, the definition of infertility. Again, we must persuade the proposal of the bill where they say that infertility means the inability to conceive after 1 year of unprotected coitus or any other proven medical condition preventing a couple from conception. Dr. Nyekali was going to consult. I don't know if 1 year of continuous activity should amount, if there is no results, could amount to infertility because there could be other emotional issues pertaining to it. But Honorable Speaker, there are 3 fundamental issues I want to raise here. Number one, and my colleagues have raised as a Catholic, who is supposed to benefit from this? Is it any person who is unable to take through the process? For example, a lady who feels probably does not want to deform her belly. Would she go for surrogate motherhood? Will the law allow? Or is it a case where it's proven beyond reasonable doubt the lady is unable to carry a pregnancy to term? Is it a case of genetic selection that I see the speaker is a very prominent person in this country and my husband is unable, convince the husband, let's go for this other end so that we do genetic modification? What is it are we looking at? Secondly, is it for married couples or for those who enter marriage for purpose of convenience to get children? So those are some of the issues that we must address. Honorable Speaker, the second issue that is very critical, under clause 35 of the bill, it provides that at the age of 18, a child born out of surrogacy arrangement or under this act can seek to know the correct position, can seek to know, to get details, the records concerning the conception and the entire process. Honorable Speaker, as I said, or having a child is both a physical or blood matter, but it's also an emotional matter. A case where a child reaching 18, the parents have invested heavily, and then now goes to find out who are the rightful parents, and then abandons these parents. So what recourse do we have under Article 57 that requires that all the member society must be taken care of by the family? What moral obligations? Because all that we have here, this bill, it only talks about the rights of the child, talks about the right of the surrogate parent, talks about the right of the donor, does not talk about the right of the parent who has taken care of the child up to the end. So, Honorable Speaker, at the Committee of the whole House, we must for sure deal with these moral and medical issues. Honorable Speaker, the second issue, which is very critical, and Mheshimiwa Sunkuli has raised it. By the very nature, an embryo is fertilized outside the womb of a woman under this arrangement. The embryo is fertilized out of the womb of a woman. The bill makes a provision that that arrangement can be terminated before implant into a woman in the event the contracting parties disagree. So the question we'll ask ourselves, when does life begin? Does it begin at conception? And that's why we'll seek the technical expert of Dr. Nyekali. Is an embryo fertilized in a test tube? Does life start there, or does life start when it's implanted into the womb of a woman? Now, those are now moral issues, constitutional issues, religious issues that we must delve into, so that this bill, as it tends to address a very fundamental issue, we must also not lose sight of our culture, the constitution, our religious arrangement, so that we are able to tie up all together. But I must commend Millie for getting out of their way, because these things are happening. But we must also incorporate these traditional approaches that we had had for all the years of solving issues of barrenness, childlessness, so that we are able to incorporate, so that we move away from technology, we also allow the natural process. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Dr. Naomi Wako, in 1 minute.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for allowing me to add my voice to this very important debate, as I also congratulate Honorable Millie Odambo for coming up with this bill on reproductive technology. Mr. Speaker, I stand to support this bill because of what we know in our own society and in our country. We know that people who have had challenges of infertility have had a negative impact of that in their lives, and in particular women have suffered from the negative impact of that. Many have experienced violence, many have been divorced, and many have also gone through social stigma and emotional stress. Depression has also taken place in some people's life, anxiety, and low self-esteem. As a result of that, Mr. Speaker, many have even committed suicide. And that is why today I stand to support this bill, so that this technology can be a relief to many people. Mr. Speaker, in part 3, clause 1 to 19 of the bill provides of matters regulating prohibiting activities, including the use of embryos, consent of parties, and etc. Mr. Speaker, this will solve a lot of problems from our generations today, and especially women who have in the past been moved to depression because of this.
Order, Honorable Naomi Wako. You will continue after the adjournment motion. I want to now call the mover to move the adjournment motion. If we are able to be done with it within time, we will revert to this motion, Honorable Dr. Naomi Wako, and you'll have 8.5 minutes to make your contributions as we proceed to the others. Yes, yes. Honorable Mbui.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The House did approve that we do adjourn the House for purposes of discussing this definite matter of urgent national importance regarding these ongoing demolitions and evictions in Athi River, Machakos County. Mr. Speaker, since Friday the 13th, which I would refer to as a dark Friday of October, up to date, the worst case of demolitions in the history of this country has been taking place in the county of Machakos, in the constituencies of Mavoko, in an area of Athi River. Mr. Speaker, first my sympathies go to those almost 10,000 families that have lost their livelihoods, their homes, their boards. Mr. Speaker, 5 churches were brought down, and Mr. Speaker, there are 33 churches on notice to also be brought down. Mr. Speaker, mosques, business premises, including 3 schools and a health facility, have also been brought down. Mr. Speaker, my sympathies notably go to one Mr. Madenge, Mr. Speaker, who is a hustler that took a loan to purchase land and went to the point of trying to confirm whether this land was actually legitimate, and that is only done when you go to the registry of lands, and confirmed that the people that were purporting to sell the land to him were actually the genuine landowners. And he invested his money and took a loan. And Mr. Speaker went to an architect and a civil engineer, got structural architectural drawings and structural drawings. And Mr. Speaker also sought the approval of the county government for construction of his house. Mr. Speaker, all this was granted. And Mr. Speaker, On the basis of that, he took a loan and built a house. Mr. Speaker, it is not even 10 years since this house was built. It has been brought down. What remains is rubble. It is important to note, Mr. Speaker, that Mr. Madenge still continues now, every month from his salary, to pay a housing levy. Mr. Speaker, it is a tragedy. My sympathies go to those families where their houses were brought down on that first night. And so children woke up the next day, they had no school to go to. It is unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, because also families had nowhere to live, because these destructions started in the evening. And by morning, Mr. Speaker, people were thrown out. Children spent the night out in the cold. Mothers with small children were out in the cold. Fathers had no answers for their families. Mr. Speaker, it is a major tragedy. Mr. Speaker, I want to condemn in the strongest terms possible those that gave the instructions for the demolition to take place. It is so unfortunate, 60 years after independence, that people can be hoodwinked, buy land and process titles, get connected to the national grid of electricity, road networks are put up, water is supplied in that area by the county government, and then suddenly all this comes down. And Mr. Speaker, I also want to condemn the police that was sent there in huge numbers. Mr. Speaker, it was so unfortunate because I went there as a local leader to go condole with these families and to see how we could help the children that spend the night out in the cold, whether we would provide them with blankets, whether we would buy for them a cup of tea. Mr. Speaker, we were chased like dogs, Mr. Speaker. It is unfortunate. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that the history of this land, this is ancestral land. It is our heritage, the heritage of the people of Machakos. And Mr. Speaker, the land was given to the East African Portland Cement. They did not purchase it. The reason that East African Portland Cement was given this land was simply because that area was rich in minerals that are used in the production of cement. So they were given this land for purposes of mining so that they could be able to process cement, and that was the main business of East African Portland Cement. Mr. Speaker, it is notable that the East African Portland Cement has run into billions of debt as a result of the poor management of the business itself, a business that was once a monopoly of production of cement in this country. And therefore, in order to cover their losses, in order to cover their poor business practices, now East African Portland purports to want to sell the land that belongs to the community of Machakos County. Mr. Speaker, I think that is something we cannot take for granted. Mr. Speaker, it is also good to note that when these evictions were done, there was no eviction order that was given by the court. Mr. Speaker, the case that was taken to court was thrown out on technicality. And the only thing that the judge finally said was that we need to set a date of hearing so that a discussion could take place, so that the case would be heard. The case was never heard. And then, so therefore, after it was thrown out on technicality, bulldozers, the sound of bulldozers, the sound of wailing women and children is what we could hear from that place. So, Mr. Speaker, it is quite an irony that 60 years after independence, people can be thrown out in that manner. Mr. Speaker, it's also notable that Clause 155 of the Land Act does indicate that in order for anyone to be evicted, there must be two things. One, a court order, so that we can be sure that the court process has taken place. And two, Mr. Speaker, a notice of 60 days. You notice that recently when there was a ruling about the land that was owned by Gerishon Kirima, the late honorable member, they have given the occupants 60 days, and they have also opened up an opportunity for discussions. Mr. Speaker, that was not the case in Mavoko. That was not the case in our region. And Mr. Speaker, it's also good to note that it is on record that there are other areas where there were issues of land disputes, and evictions were to take place. And none other than the Deputy President himself, Mr. Speaker, said that he will not allow the evictions to take place in Okalau. Are the people of Mavoko any less than the ones in Okalau? Or is it true that there are people that are shareholders and that those that are not? Mr. Speaker, on the inauguration of this government of Kenya Kwanza, there was very clear information given to us that from now, Kenyans are now safe, and no one will have their house brought down as a result of a land dispute. It is shocking, Mr. Speaker, that the worst ever case from the history of this country, of demolitions, of people who are innocent, has happened only 11 months after this team of leadership of Kenya Kwanza was sworn into office. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to plead that we look at it from this perspective. There may be people that are capable, Mr. Speaker, and that is why DCI is getting involved, ESCC is getting involved. We know there were letters that were being thrown out from long time ago for people to be investigated. But, Mr. Speaker, those people whose houses have come down are not guilty of any crime other than purchasing land and putting up a house. Mr. Speaker, it is unfortunate that this is happening to our people, and I want to ask that the government do what they said on the time of inauguration. Let them take care of these Kenyan hustlers. Let them make sure that those people whose houses were brought down are supported by being compensated, Mr. Speaker. Let them be compensated. Let them not have worked so hard to put up an abode for their families. And that all goes to waste, Mr. Speaker, at a split of a second. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I want to say that it was also unfortunate and shocking when we saw that East African Portland Cement, after bringing down almost 10,000 homes, were now purporting to want to sell the land to the people that were occupying that land. Mr. Speaker, it is unfortunate. It is shocking. It is something that this House must condemn in the strongest terms possible, and it is something that we must say should never again happen in the history of this country. It is a shame on us, even as leaders, for this country, many years after independence, for this kind of situation to take place. And we as leaders must stand up to be counted. We must defend the rights of the people. We must represent the people. We must legislate on their behalf, Mr. Speaker. And I think we have enough laws. All that matters now is for us to represent them and say enough is enough. And no further demolitions of innocent Kenyans' homes will take place in this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The leader of the minority party in Parliament.
Mr. Speaker, let me join the Honorable Robert Mbui in condemning, in the strongest terms possible, the atrocities which have been meted by the state against the hapless dwellers of Mavoko in the recent past. Even as we speak, Mr. Speaker, the demolitions are ongoing. Mr. Speaker, court order or no court order, no sane government, and I'm calling it government because the police were there. The police were mobilized to go and watch over as people's dwellings were brought down. No sane government on earth can participate in the kind of destruction of human settlements in the manner this government has done. The Speaker, under the international law, displacement of populations, displacement of populations, subjecting human beings to inhuman treatment are crimes against humanity. So what the Kenya Kwanza government has done to the dwellers of Mavoko in the last 2-3 weeks amount to crimes against humanity. And I want to warn whoever has been involved in this, court order or no court order, that the law will catch up with you. The law will eventually catch up with you. Mr. Speaker, we have been told that there was a court order. But even as we say so, which government can subject human beings to a treatment which even wild animals can't be subjected to? Mr. Speaker, even the KWS, when they want to transfer elephants, lions, zebras, they treat them in a more humane manner than the manner in which this government has treated the inhabitants of the Mavoko settlement area. And there's no point of order, Mr. Speaker. This is a very serious matter that you don't want to trivialize.
Honorable Naomi Wako, you are going to speak immediately after the minority leader.
Just relax, yes.
Yes, so let us speak without interruptions,
Mr. Speaker,
unless there is a clear breach of the standing orders.
The least that any sane government would do is to give such homeowners a reasonable notice. Not a notice to eventually evict them, but a notice to allow them to come to some kind of agreement or settlement with whoever is laying claim on the land. Mr. Speaker, this land that is being claimed by the East Africa Portland Cement has a long history, has a very long history. And we know for sure that the reason why the government is in a hurry to evict these persons is because they want to put Portland Cement for sale. They want Portland Cement to be bought by these cartels. The cartels in Kenya Kwanza have lined up to buy Portland Cement, and therefore they want that the time they'll be buying it, they should buy it together with the land. The intention here is to clear this land of inhabitants, to clear this vast land of people who have settled on it, so that by the time they acquire, by the time they grab the Portland Cement, they can grab it together with the vast land. That is the issue. And I have to tell you today, Kenya Kwanza, that what you have done will go down in history as the cruelest thing that any government can ever do to its citizens. Mr. Speaker, you cannot treat Kenyans as wild animals. You cannot evict people when schools are about to start doing exams. Class 8 pupils, Form 4 students, Class 6 candidates are supposed to start doing the national exams in a matter of weeks, if not days. You cannot evict such people. Mr. Speaker, you cannot demolish churches, the houses of God, and yet you proclaim to be God-fearing people. What hypocrisy is this? What hypocrisy is this? You proclaim on one hand that you are God-fearing. Every Sunday you go out there masquerading as Christians, and yet you evict people, you demolish their churches, you demolish their schools. Mr. Speaker, this in
Honorable Wandai, your time is up. You have 2 minutes because you are a leader. Only because of that. And I'm only doing this.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much.
Let me say this, Honorable Wandai. Honorable Wandai, this is an adjournment motion. It was not timed, so based on interest, it can go up to 9. That is why I'm requesting members not to unduly intervene, because each member speaks for only 5 minutes. All of you can speaking anything, so long as nothing is out of order. So accommodate one another as much as possible. We have all the time for all members I see in the House. Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, we are seeing now other busybodies taking cue from the Mavoko incident. We have heard that equally there is a possibility of people being evicted in Njiru. Is the member addressing me or the speaker? But you can't, let me continue. Mr. Speaker, we cannot allow this culture of impunity to take root in this country under our watch. We are saying that Kenya Kwanza must be called out for getting involved in this kind of atrocities against helpless citizens of this country, who they promise to protect. If you cannot protect an innocent home dweller who has taken a loan from a bank, from a SACCO, to put up a home, who then will you protect? Is this government meant for the cartels, or is it meant for the whole country? Is this a government that is simply going to be serving the interests of the cartels in it, or is it a government that can be trusted to serve the interests of all citizens? We don't want to know who bought the land first. We don't want to know who owned the land first. We don't want to know how the land was acquired by.
Honorable Patrick Macau. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker,
the Honorable Majority
even
Leader.
before I speak, Honorable Speaker, even before I speak, may I urge my honorable colleagues that allow me, I bring in some perspective that will help all of us. In our language, we say the believed does not speak a lot. But today, I want to bring some history about this land of Mavoko. And I urge Kenyans, we approach this issue with a lot of sobriety, no emotions, because it's going to address a lot of evils from all the agencies that are concerned with land dealings in this country. Mr. Speaker, I am the MP Mavoko, and I want to tell this House, I have institutional memory of that constituency. And not forgetting that this land in issue, the land in question, Portland has its land. Portland has got many parcels of land. And the only parcel that is in question is LL 10424. So members, as we speak, let us not have a blanket condemnation of how many LL numbers we are addressing. The demolitions happened on LL number 10424. Honorable Speaker, members remember who were here on the 11th, during the 11th Parliament, that I brought a petition in this House requiring the Committee on Lands to have Portland surrender its mined land with letters which were signed by the board, and they agreed that they have had 2,000 acres that they have mined, and they are ready to surrender to the local community. Honorable members, one thing we should understand is once land is surrendered, as per Article 67, it goes back to NLC, National Lands Commission, who in turn surrenders it to the local county government of that area. Then the local county government of that area decides the land use. The LL number I brought here was 8786, stroke 144, 145, and 146. And Mr. Speaker, we agreed with Portland, and it was agreed by even the then Committee of Lands, Department of Lands, led by Honorable Mwiru, that they were ready. We went ahead, NLSC agreed, the then Interior Minister, Mr. Ngaiseri, agreed, and that was agreed that they're going to give out the land. Mr. Speaker, however, during that time, the LL 10464 was in existence. However, and I want members to note, this land in question was owned or was claimed by Portland and Aimima Lukenya. Aimima Lukenya had a title for that parcel of land summing to 4,298 acres. Mr. Speaker, we must ask ourselves, where did Portland get this land? I agree with speakers that this land belonged to the people of Machakos County before it was allocated to Portland. Now, there must have been people who are living there. This Aimima Lukenya claimed that their grandparents were buried there, and they're the ones who had that land. Mr. Speaker, what we should be asking ourselves is, since 2013, when the new government of Machakos came in place, they are the ones who started approving buildings. They were collecting rates from the same parcel of land. Mr. Speaker, today you know you cannot open a file in any county government without ownership documents. Mr. Speaker, and that's why I'm saying there is no way you can build in any municipal or city in this town without approvals from the county. Now, if since 2013 to 2023, the county government of Machakos has been approving these houses, at what point did Portland know that it was not their land? Number two, these were two entities competing for one land, Aimima Lukenya and Portland. Now, if this case went to court, for the court to determine who are the rightful owners of this land, Mr. Speaker, the owners of these houses had, and they claimed on national television that they went to banks using the same title, they were given loans, they were being used by county governments for approvals, they went for search, and they were coming out with the right title deed. Mr. Chairman, I condemn with the strongest terms possible the demolition.
Honorable Mavoko, because you are keeping to facts, not inflammatory statements, I'll give you 2 minutes. But wind up because the
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So the big question is,
to speak.
Mr. Speaker, even as we speak here, the Minister of Lands must be held culpable. Why did they issue 2 titles on 1 parcel of land? Why were the county governments approving these houses on the same title deed? Mr. Speaker, we know the government is the issuer of title deeds. They are the ones who verify. They're the ones who nullify. And Mr. Speaker, if you look at the title which has been given to the court belonging to Aimea Lukenya, was issued 1980. The one of Portland was issued 2022 and 2023. Mr. Speaker, sometimes we must agree, and I've said it, and I'm saying it again. Had we had a dialogue with the various interested parties, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, this could not have happened. At least we should have saved those houses. And Mr. Speaker, those Kenyans are very innocent. Today, to build 10 by 10 is very expensive. Mr. Speaker, also, this is not an issue which should not be politicized. Mr. Speaker, I am the MP Mavoko. I represent pastors, MPs, thieves, and everybody. So for me to go and answer for a call of crime, Mr. Speaker, you should not associate me with that. Mr. Speaker, there are processes of buying land. If there is anybody who can point a finger at the MP Mavoko, let them point a finger, bring out trails and show anything. But Mr. Speaker, we must be alive to the fact that titles are issued by Ministry of Lands, they are verified by counties, even Kenya Power had put power lines there, water was put there. Where were they? Why are they making Kenyans suffer? Because of political differences, because of political divides. And I'm ashamed by members of parliament who come from Mukambani and they were not even in support of the community. Mr. Speaker, at one point, and I love Kenyans who go back sometimes. If it was Ishungwa, and I respect it, one time I saw him in Kikuyu saying, my people of Mavoko, my people of Mavoko should be respected. They should be...
Honorable Patrick Makau, your time is up. The majority leader proceed to make your contribution. You take precedence over everybody else in the House.
Thank you, Honorable
These
Speaker.
people making requests like Honorable Joyce Kamene, we'll have to wait until the Honorable Majority Leader is done.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
You know, Honorable Catherine Omanyo, you need to understand your constitution and understanding orders. It does not matter how long you've been in the House. When the majority leader and the minority leader come in, everything stops until they're done. Proceed, Honorable Ichung'wah.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I hope she's well advised. Honorable Speaker, let me first say the Honorable member for Mavoko had started very well, but has finished in a very unfortunate manner by attempting to disparage members of parliament who represent their people on the basis of their ethnicity, that those who are from Ukambani. It's rather unfortunate, and we should not make this adjournment motion to be an issue to do with ethnicity or indeed political affiliation. And that is why I'm here, to debate on the adjournment motion. Honorable Speaker, I have listened keenly to what the two leaders, the leader of minority and the deputy, were saying, and I was listening to them from my office. And I'm rather perturbed, Honorable Speaker, that senior leaders like the leader of minority can say that they do not care whether or not there was a court order, that you do not care who owned the land, you do not care who bought the land first ahead of who. And he speaks about atrocities. Yet we have seen our colleagues in the minority, especially those who come from the ODM party, want to fashion ODM as a party that stands at the forefront of the fight against corruption. How then would you not care when public land is being grabbed if there are people who are visiting atrocities on the people of Mavoko and anywhere else? It is land grabbers who are grabbing public land with impunity. Honorable Speaker, we must also bring to question the role of government officers in land grabbing. When land was being grabbed from Portland Cement, because there is no question as to who owns the land. The land is owned by the East African Portland Cement Company. And even the Honorable Robert Mbui knows that. He also knows that there are leaders, current leaders and former leaders in the region, including former members of parliament, former county council chairmen, former councillors who grabbed this land and have sold the land to innocent buyers, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it is one thing to come and pontificate here and in political rallies and funerals on the fight against corruption, then come to this house and seek to defend corruption and land grabbing. If there is anybody visiting atrocities to the people of Mavoko, it is the leadership within Machakos County that has perpetuated the grabbing of public land, and a county government that continues to approve buildings on land that they know is not owned by the people who are seeking approval. How did they build houses that are approved by the county government of Machakos without requisite ownership documents, including a title deed? Those are the people who have visited atrocities on the people of Machakos and Mavoko. The governor Machakos County, former chairman of county councils in Mavoko, like the member for Mavoko, who is a former chairman of the county council, must be held to account. They must tell the people of Kenya how and when was this land grabbed, what were their roles, because you cannot hide behind politics, as I have seen the Honorable Robert Mbui attempting to do in raising issues about where people are being evicted. Robert Mbui were with you in this house when the Uhuru Kenyatta government evicted people from Mathare on the sewer.
The majority leader will have 2 additional minutes to conclude.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I was saying the Honorable Robert Mbui sat with me in this house just like the Honorable Pio Andai and the member for Mavoko sat with me in this house in the last regime, under the handshake regime, when in the midst of the COVID pandemic, you mobilized tractors on a cold, rainy night to demolish houses for the people in Mathare and Ruaraka. And you never condemned, you are cheering. I do not stand here today to cheer the demolition of houses. I stand here today to tell you, you must never ever defend corruption. You must never defend land grabbing. You must be at the forefront as leaders in this house to defend the sanctity not just of a title deed, but also the sanctity of court orders. The leader of minority cannot say he does not care whether there is a court order or not. What will happen tomorrow, Honorable Speaker, if people invade the Honorable Pio's 2-acre farm in Ugunja, or his 20 acres, and and he gets a court order to evict them, and he can't evict them? Government must be allowed to work and enforce court orders just like any other. Honorable Speaker, amongst the people I have heard in the recent past, you remember last year there was an incident where people invaded Uhuru Kenyatta's land, and I had said, Honorable Speaker, if you can protect me from this lady from Busia, who has a penchant for shouting a lot of things that makes no sense to anybody.
Order.
Protect me from the lady. And you know, I once said something about her hair. Now, don't make me say something about your teeth.
Honorable Catherine Omanyo. Majority Leader. Order. Order, Honorable Catherine Omanyo. You talk to the House through the Speaker. And I've said each one of us will be heard in silence. The Majority Leader, you have 15 seconds to wind up.
Honorable Speaker, I was saying only recently, last year, when Uhuru Kenyatta's land was invaded, and I had issued a caution, Honorable Mwenje reminds me it's this year, and I had issued a cautionary statement to Uhuru Kenyatta and his family. Honorable Speaker, you heard the other day the chairman of Mungiki asking his members who invaded Uhuru's farm and stole his goats or his sheep to return them, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, if we can defend, and I can stand to defend Uhuru Kenyatta's right to own land, we must equally defend East African Portland Cement's right to own land and hold its land peaceably without anybody defending those who have grabbed the land. In conclusion, Honorable Speaker, let me say this. The leadership in Machakos County must come clean. It doesn't matter whether it's from pre-independence or after independence or from...
Honorable Makali Mulu.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me also start by also conveying my sympathies to the families who suffered the demolitions. Honorable Speaker, you know, it is a known fact that two wrongs don't make a right. And Honorable Speaker, if you look at the history of this country, demolitions have been very expensive to families who are involved. And I remember during the campaigns, Honorable Speaker, the Kenya Kwanza government, one of the things they used to arm our former president with was the issue of demolitions. I remember they did state very clearly that no Kenyans will suffer in the future after they take over the way demolitions were being done by the last regime. And this was basically because of the associated human rights issues when it comes to demolitions. Honorable Speaker, I've listened to the leaders in this House make their statements. And at times I wonder, do we really feel what the people who are really affected are feeling? Are we really representatives of the people? Because the question is, when I see my friend, Honorable Makau, making statements, Honorable Makau is the MP Mavoko, elected by everybody who votes in Mavoko, Honorable Speaker. And that means is the voice of that particular constituency when it comes to matters representation. And anytime he talks, we should see him that way. Honorable Speaker, we must lay this blame where it belongs. Honorable Speaker, the truth of the matter is, the custodian of title deeds in this country is the Minister of Lands. And there are people who know which land in this country belongs to who. And Honorable Speaker, I want to explain a scenario. And I want to be excused because these are some of the scenarios we must explain to put the points forward. In a situation where a woman gets pregnant, Honorable Speaker, it is known very well that even if you do what as a man, she can't conceive again before she delivers. Conceive again before she delivers. That's a fact. It's a biological fact. What I'm saying, Honorable Speaker, is if I have a title to a piece of land in this country, how come that there's a situation somebody else can have an access to a title to the same piece of land? We need to make it to that level, Honorable Speaker. A level whereby, once I have a title, written Honorable Makali Mulu, no other Kenyan should have that title to the same piece of land, if people did their work properly. So the question is, I think time has come, Honorable Speaker, where us as leaders of this country, and I think, Honorable Speaker, every part of Kenya, every corner of Kenya is represented in this House. So, Honorable Speaker, when we make our statements, anytime we are discussing national issues, we need to bear in mind that the whole of Kenya is represented in this House. That's all I want to beg honorable members, that can we rise above our basic bipartisan approach to issues, matters political parties. The people of Mavoko, and I want to tell you for sure, very few Kambas had the houses demolished in that place. It is Kenyans who suffered. And these Kenyans come from all this part of the country. It is Kenyans who suffered because they bought land. Yesterday, we did see, Honorable Speaker, the issue of Krema land in Rwai. People have built, they have been that land for over 10 years, 15 years, and then one day you are being told that title belongs to Lima family. And you also have your own title. So to me, I think, Majority Leader, what I want to plead with you, and this is not for this government only, I think we can do a review of what has happened in the past, and we establish who are the original title owners of the land. And once we establish that, Majority Leaders move to the future, we make sure that never again in the history of Kenya we'll have one piece of land having more than one title. If we go that way, we'll be helping Kenyans, and this country will be on the right direction. With those many remarks, I submit, Honorable Speaker, and I was asked to help the people of Mavoko. Those who have lost their houses, they must be.
By you. Honorable Moses Kirima to make his contributions.
First and foremost is that I pass my sympathy out to the people of Mavoko. Honestly, it's very sympathetic. It's a situation which every Kenyan should understand, especially the people who have been surviving on mager earnings. Because to put up a house to an extent of which I saw the kind of buildings which were being demolished, it was a sympathetic situation. But now, Mr. Speaker, sir, we must come to the point, who are responsible? Who made those Kenyans to suffer the way they have really suffered? We cannot just point fingers to a few, because by the time one comes to own land in Kenya, there is a process. I've been an advocate for quite a period, and I know very well that, one, you must have an agreement to possess a piece of land. When we have vendors and the purchasers, there must be an exchange of documents. Now, who used to own these documents without blaming or pointing fingers to who is who? It's true that Kenya is full of cartels. And in one or the other, there has been duplication of titles if you go to the land registries, whereby you'll find a party as an original title, and then the others who come through other methods and they end up having other different titles. And now, if you are not careful enough, you are going to buy a duplicated title, and you are going to be a sufferer. So we cannot say that these owners of these houses be compensated, because the first question will come, by who? To me, I'm saying that those vendors who sold these pieces of land, because there must be agreements. Where they came from, they must be scrutinized. And then whoever sold the land, if he is in this house or not, if he has returned or not, he must be capable as it is in the Constitution. He must be liable. He must compensate those people who have lost, because they have lost their lifetime earnings. One, for a title deed, or for a plan to be approved by a county government, you must produce a title deed. But still, let's not forget, there can be undue influence whereby we make calls to the people who are approving this, who are approving the plan of the BQs. And when you make calls as an MP or anybody else who is of influence, I tell you, approval will be there. Then you will be promising that status will fall. So what we are saying is that court orders must be obeyed in one or the other, because without court orders being obeyed, I tell you, we are going to be in anarchy. This is not the first or the last case which this house is going to hear. We have a similar case in KU, whereby there is a Kama area. It's independent by very rich people. It has been, because they have been promised that they are going to be purchased or there will be negotiations. Even this area, of which the court is here, Mr. Speaker, is saying that there will be no point of order. If majority need has a house there, I guarantee him is going to face the same problem. But what I'm saying is that, Mr. Speaker, sir, no, I'm not intending. I don't want to be informed. What I'm saying is that, like this Kerema issue, if the family of Kerema is not willing to be talking with those squatters who are there, the court orders are to be obeyed in despite of the consequences. So what I am saying is that the court orders are going to be, we must respect the court. We must respect the law as it is. But I don't want to be informed. And the speaker said that there will be no point of order. So, Mr. Speaker, what I'm saying is that sympathy.
Order, Honorable Kirima. Do you want to be informed?
No, I'm not interested. No, because I know.
Yes, Majority Leader.
Honorable Speaker, I was seeking to guide my brother, Honorable Kirima, and he said he doesn't desire to be informed, and he is completely out of order. Because the debate before us is the land in Mavoko, not KU and Kamai. Because the KU case, Honorable Speaker, unlike this East African Portland case, is a case where KU has already agreed with the squatters that they will get a share of the land and they move away from the rest of the land. Therefore, it is extremely out of order for the member, the honorable member, to be misleading the House and indeed the country, because that is what makes everybody feel that there is unfairness. Because even the people of Mavoko, Honorable Speaker, if they were able to sit and negotiate with this East African Portland as squatters, as genuine squatters to get a part of the land, it has happened. Honorable Speaker, I can tell you, I have bought land myself using those share certificates.
Are you still on a point of order?
Now, Honorable Speaker, just to clarify, I have bought land in Nairobi on a certificate, but I knew the certificate is not a title, doesn't confer ownership to me. We went and negotiated with the owner of the land in Embakasi, and the member for Mboni is here, he can bear me witness. We were squatters with him. We negotiated with the owners of the land, and we paid for value. We paid for the land, and we ended up getting title documents. That is what we should be encouraging our people to do. When you occupy land that is not yours, negotiate with the owner. Pay for value and own the land, but don't discourage anarchy.
Majority Leader, Majority Leader, we don't want order members, don't seek to debate beyond your time under the guise of point of order. In fact, Majority Leader was just saying the same thing Honorable Kirima was saying, only that the contexts were different. I hear you to be talking about once a court issues orders, it must be obeyed and it must be enforced. And that is what the Majority Leader is talking about. So I overrule that point of order, and I hope none like that will be raised again. You have 1 minute to conclude, Honorable Kirima.
To conclude my remarks, Mr. Speaker, is that I have been informed by the Majority Leader, but he has misled this court, this chamber deliberately. Mr. Speaker, with due respect to the submissions of the Majority Leader, he has decided to mislead this honorable court, because the KU issue is not what he has directed. I'm so much insist of the matter that there is a section of the squatters which has negotiated with the KU, and that section is already taken care of. But there is another issue, there is another part which has high-rise buildings, and that one is a contention where KU is chasing them and they are refusing to move out. I don't know what Mwafrika and these other people, I don't know if they are owners there, but it is held by esteemed members of this society. But I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, unless we take care and honor the court orders, as my time was taken away by the Majority Leader, we are going to have the Zimbabwe.
Honorable Nelson Wamboka. And members, remember, this is a very important motion that has caused Parliament to adjourn other business.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
So could you tell us who has title and whether there are titles and when they
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I take this opportunity to join my fellow members and sympathize with the people of Mavoko who are now homeless because of a government they voted in power. Honorable Speaker. It is surprising that the Honorable Majority Leader now is talking of respecting court orders. The same courts that said Azimio protests were legal, and they went ahead and splashed tear gas, canisters, and killed innocent members. It is surprising. And
Indeed, it's not only immoral, but amoral to the person of the majority leader. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, and please protect me from my leaders here. Honorable Speaker, it surprises me that before land changes ownership from one person to another, Ministry of Land has to be involved. It surprises me. It surprises me that even the county government must be involved, Honorable Speaker. In this case, we had a government led by a governor called Mutua in Machakos County, who approved the constructions of all these houses. We had a minister in the Ministry of Lands. When these things were changing hands, where are they in all this? Where are they in all this, Honorable Speaker? Honorable Speaker, protect me from the noise-making majority leader. Where were they, Honorable Speaker? As we stand here today, the President of Republic of Kenya, William Ruto, when he came to office and he was asked about this matter, he said, we have to find a mechanism, Honorable Speaker, that when there is land dispute, we must look at ways of a win-win situation where people must sit down and discuss. It came from the president. Where is he? Why is he leaving hustlers? Just because the other day, Azimio Brigade was in Kitui and indicated that Kalonzo Musyoka could be our candidate, we are seeing all this. Why now? Don't panic. Don't panic, Kenya Kwanza government. Don't panic. Why now? Why now, Honorable Speaker? We have a rogue government that does not listen to the cries of its people. We must, by all means necessary, stop this government and make it to start listening to the cries of Kenyans.
Honorable Dr. Naomi Wako, what is out of order?
Mr. Speaker, sir, is it in order for the honorable member to keep calling the current government, the able government that is giving its best to this nation, to call the government a rogue government? And cartels, and they know the cause of all these problems. And they know the cause of all these problems.
Honorable Speaker, in another forum I could substantiate to her what is the meaning of rogue. Nothing is working, not healthcare, not education, not security, even in Baringo. That is rogue.
Honorable Nelson,
English terms.
Honorable Nelson Wamboka, it is not within your powers to determine whether or not you are out of order.
Honorable Speaker, well guided, Honorable Speaker, well guided.
Order. Honorable Naomi Wako, you are going to speak after Honorable Wamboka and prove to them that the government is not rogue. Honorable Wamboka, proceed.
Honorable Speaker, you cannot pull down churches and expect God to have peace on you. You cannot. That is why nothing is holding water now. This government cannot hold water because you cannot honestly, school-going children, exams are starting. What a heartless government. How do you knock down schools, Honorable Speaker? How do you put down mosques and churches, Honorable Speaker? And that is why it is a curse that is coming to befall this government. And we will continue talking. We will continue speaking. Where I come from, Honorable Speaker, there is a saying where a hyena told a stone, even if you keep quiet, you've heard me. I want Honorable Ichungwa to go and tell his government that even if you keep quiet, Honorable Ichungwa, you've...
The Honorable Mary Emase, you are recognized.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this motion. Honorable Speaker, protect me, I have to be heard in silence.
Especially the leadership of the House on both sides. Would you consult in lower tones so that the members can speak to the matter?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I know land is a very emotive issue, and just from the onset, I also want to sympathize with the families of Mavoko. I am a resident of Mavoko. My MP has just said he leads leaders, he leads thieves and all. I also happen to be one of his constituents. But Honorable Speaker, we all know that every land has an owner. Every land has a rightful owner. And it is rightfully so through registration. And that is why it is legally recognized as such. But land grabbing in this country, not only in Mavoko, in many other places that have been cited in the past, has been in the increase over the years. And what is saddening is that the people who suffer the consequences of land grabbing are not the grabbers, are not the powerful individuals who grab the land, either directly or through proxies, and they sell this land or allocate it, illegally of course, to innocent Kenyans. And that is the case which has happened in Mavoko. What does this mean? This is a manifestation of a failed institution or institutions. And I'm surprised when my friend Honorable Wamboka was speaking and is referring to this government of William Samoei Ruto, the Kenya Kwanza government, yet we all know that these illegal allocations, grabbing, happened during the handshake government. I have just watched even some of the clips in the social media where some of the grabbers are actually pressurizing the individuals who've been allocated land to go build on it. So, Honorable Speaker, what I'm saying is,
Honorable Mishimoko, what is out of order?
Inform Honorable Emase,
It
happened a long time from 2013.
Honorable Mishimboko, you cannot inform Honorable Emase if she does not accept. So if you want to make contributions, sit down, you'll make your contributions thereafter. Proceed, Honorable Emase.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we have the oversight institutions. This matter simply needs to be brought to rest. Let EACC, DCI, look for the individuals, the powerful individuals who grabbed the land, because it is confirmed that the land belongs to Portland Cement. So the individuals who grabbed this land then allocated it to innocent Kenyans, and then they're trying to politicize, use the innocent Kenyans as a politics. That is unacceptable. Let them be looked for. Let those individuals in government offices, we are saying people must take responsibility. If you're given an opportunity to serve Kenyans in any capacity, you must take responsibility. You cannot approve land that does not belong to that individual and allow it to be legally allocated to another individual to suffer. And it is even happening with many other private land. You find an individual knowing that he has already sold land to someone else, continues to sell it to another person, In fact, the Committee on Land must look at the law and put very stringent, consequences, punitive, to deter any further, illegal allocations and preying on innocent Kenyans, and then we begin to use them as bait to politicize, to put ourselves into our cocoons, into our, ethnicity, bring our ethnicity in it. It has nothing to do with that. Our institutions must work. People must.
Honorable Joyce Kamene.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I would like to add my voice into this very painful issue of the Mavoko land. Mr. Speaker, let me start by saying, 2 wrongs do not make a right. Indeed, people were there, they had settled, but for the government to decide to demolish all these houses, I think.
Honorable Joyce Kamene, the majority leader, is on a point of order.
Speaker, my apologies to Honorable Kamene for interrupting her contribution, but I rise on standing order number 90 on declaration of interest, Honorable Speaker. Because, Honorable Speaker, when I mentioned that I had been a squatter at one point somewhere, the member for Embakasi West was very keen to listen, and I clarified to him that it was not the matter before the House. And standing order 90, Honorable Speaker, if I read, it says, a member who wishes to speak on any matter in which the member has a personal interest shall, and the word is shall, first declare that interest. And members can read the other provisions of that standing order. Honorable Speaker, I have noted with due respect to members that there are quite a number of members who have an interest in this matter who have contributed without declaring interest. And maybe to advise those who are contributing after the Honorable Kamene to declare interest if you have an interest in this matter. We have heard from the member for Mavoko that they are members of parliament who are constituents in Mavoko, and the Honorable Emase has confirmed that she lives in Mavoko, although not on the disputed land. Therefore, those, Honorable Speaker, you must guide the House that those who have an interest, whether you live on this land or you have invested on this land, you must declare interest. And Honorable Speaker, because I came in after the member for Mavoko had begun his contribution, I did not rise. I should have risen at that point to ask the member for Mavoko that he ought to have declared interest, because he has a personal interest in this matter. You know, he has been summoned by the DCI on matters touching with this land, and he therefore ought to have declared interest before his contribution. I don't know whether he was summoned as a witness or as a suspect. He should have told us and informed the House, so that even as others contribute, they may contribute knowing whether they are addressing either someone who is of interest to DCI, as a suspect, as a witness. Honorable Speaker, I seek your guidance.
Honorable Majority Leader, Honorable Patrick Mavoko, sit down. No, please sit down. You see, the enforcement of these standing orders of the House lies with the seat. So what the Majority Leader is doing is to, I think, assume that the Speaker is not aware of standing order number 90. The fact that the MP for Mavoko was at the Directorate of Criminal Investigation is a matter of public knowledge. And we would not demand he declares any interest unless that was the matter under discussion here. It's not the matter. Of course, he spoke and confirmed he's the member of parliament for the area. And he spoke with a lot of latitude about the details of the matter. I think unless you believe there is some interest which has not been disclosed by him in the contribution, let us allow members to proceed. In any event, Majority Leader, the contribution by the Honorable Patrick Mavoko is now water under the bridge. We are on Honorable Joyce Kamene. Yeah, under the standing orders, you don't raise, and this is a caution to all members. Don't stand on a point of order against a member who is done with speaking. I would consider it disorderly conduct, henceforth. Honorable
Chair.
Joyce Kamene, you will have your 5 minutes beginning now.
Thank you. Gone off. Mr. Speaker, the majority has told us to declare, yes, I am a resident of Mavoko. And my biggest interests are the citizens and the residents of Mavoko. And it is of great concern, and it is very hurting, it is very painful, because I visited the scene and saw the heinous way their houses were demolished. Young children, innocent children. In fact, the biggest concern right now would be the government telling us what it is doing about the children who are supposed to sit for their exams. And nothing has been done so far. They have not even had any interest to know what the outcome of those children is going to be. The second thing is this one, Portland. Portland, I think, does not even sell cement. The work of Portland is to make sure it's selling all this land. And it has been selling for the last 5 years. Portland has received more than 6 billion. And yet, it is the one which came in front of the committee saying that it's bankrupt and it wants to sell this land that now has been, houses have been demolished. Can Portland tell us who's using Portland? Who are these cartels that are using Portland? And have they become that evil to demolish a government that is talking about housing? We saw houses worth billions and billions going to the ground. What are they trying to tell us? We are saying this: the government has to compensate the people that were living in that land. It is the same government, and it has refused to devolve the land issue. All the titles are gotten from Nairobi. Why is it that those transactions are not done in Machakos and Mavoko? Because we also have our departments there. It is simple. We know the cartels that are behind this land and what they are planning to do, but they should remember this land is in Ukambani. And it is ours. And we are demanding it is ours, the people of Machakos County. And it is the CS in this current government who authorized and who okayed for those houses to be built. And this matter started in 2013. And we know very well what was happening in 2013 when two buddies who walked hand in hand in State House coordinating. I think when that love was there too much is when they decided to do what they have done, and that is why our people are suffering. I don't care what tribe they are, but they should not be treated the way we have seen them being treated. Can the government come up and do a plan of compensation for the people of Mavoko? And the land that is remaining, let it be reverted back to the county government, because it is our land. And it is the government of Machakos who will decide on what to do. There's nothing like Portland. Tuliwapatia shamba, and the shamba is ours as Machakos County. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, honorable members, how I wish you could have the spirit Honorable Makali Mulu spoke with, because he spoke to a solution we can deliberate upon and provide in future. And so henceforth, could people tell us whether there are dual titles or there were single titles? If there were dual titles, when were they issued? If they were dual titles, were both issued by the Ministry of Lands? And if so, what responsibility should the ministry have to the people? And most of the lawyers here, you remember the doctrine called administrative estoppel. If they built on the property, and I'm just saying this for guidance, I fear even when we adjourn the House to discuss matters of national importance, we talk as if we are just playing politics. I mean, we are talking of Kenyans. Those people I saw in Machakos, I cannot say with clarity on which side of the political divide they voted. I only saw Kenyans. Can we address issues and as a House of Representatives come to solutions? Were those houses built without approval, planning approval? Is it possible that if there were planning approvals, they were given without titles? Were those services being supplied there without approval? And if there were titles and approvals, who are involved and to what extent are they culpable or liable for the damage caused to those Kenyans? Is it true that some of those houses were built using loans? And if so, is it possible banks gave loans without proper documentation? If they did due diligence, did the Ministry of Land confirm that they duly owed those titles? And if so, how do we deal with them in terms of the monies they still owe those financial institutions? I mean, let us talk around those areas. Remember, the Lands Ministry is digitizing title. Could that be a solution we could be talking about? Let us talk issues. May I have the Honorable Rindikiri Mugambi?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I truly would like to sympathize and empathize at the same time with the people of Mavoko. I don't know whether they are canvassed or not, but those Kenyans whose property was demolished. Mr. Speaker, as you have guided, settlement on a prime piece of land in Kenya, particularly in an area of high value, Mr. Speaker, is not something that people just walk in and invade. Mr. Speaker, these are not IDPs, nor are they squatters. These people, from the characteristics of the buildings that we saw, they are people with means. They are people who have a bit of education. They are people who are well versed, even with the kind of property they need to develop. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I'm inclined to think that these people know what they were doing when they are settling on that piece of land. But Mr. Speaker, if you go to the Ministry of Lands, and we have all been there, Mr. Speaker, there is what is called the original title and the plan. Mr. Speaker, if you go to the Survey of Kenya, and that's where I believe that it needs to start, it will provide the original ownership of the land. Mr. Speaker, there is none of the movers of the motion or the supporters who are disputed that the land does not belong to East Africa Portland Cement. What many of us are raising here is demolition. We need to start dealing who is the original owner of the land, and when this land was allocated to the original owners, and whether this land, the people who settled, they were aware that this land belongs to East Africa Portland Cement. Mr. Speaker, as I'm talking to you, and this is on record, Mr. Speaker, I have 3 primary schools whose land has been grabbed and the title issued. One secondary school called Silimoni Secondary School, 6 acres of land and 9 titles. If we start talking about the legality of titles, yes, there were 9 titles, but the original owner is Silimoni Secondary School. So the possibility of the people who acquired thereafter the Portland Cement could be having titles which are not the original titles and which have been given out there by land grabbers and brokers. Mr. Speaker, if I'm not wrong, this case has not appeared last month when the court orders of eviction were issued. I believe there are eviction orders which were issued before, but they were never attended.
Honorable Mugambi, I heard the mover of this adjournment motion say that the case that was between the rival owners, East African Portland Cement and another company, was dismissed on technicality, so the issue of ownership never rose. I also heard him say there is no order for eviction. In fact, that was the complaint he placed before the House. Do you have the eviction orders?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. But what I'm saying is there could be lacons, because what we saw is the tailor-head representation of this, the houses represented by the party leader Kalonzo Musyoka on the tailhead. And that matter was also thrown off by the courts. Meaning, Mr. Speaker, the court arbitrated, the court issued judgment based on the evidence that was presented by South African Portland Cement, and therefore it was declared that they are the owners of the land. Mr. Speaker, what am I saying? This land and the people who bought this land, they bought.
You'll have 1 minute, Honorable Indikiri.
These people who sold the land to these Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, they are known to those people who bought the land. And from what we are hearing from the media, they are lended to come forward and they say so and so sold them the piece of land. Mr. Speaker, when these people come forth, now we shall separate the beans from the stones. We can't sit here and start blaming the government. Government has nothing to do with this. In actual fact, what we are telling the government to move with speed, ICC, NIS, all of them, they move with speed and bring to book some of these culprits. I saw some Kamba members, leaders, issuing a statement. And I'm seeing also other Kamba members issuing a statement. What a contradiction. Are we talking about the same thing? There is some.
Honorable Charles Ngusia.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to add my voice on this dehumanizing act which has been committed by Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. Let me join by actually sympathizing, or rather empathizing with Kenyans who faced this atrocity of highest order. Mr. Speaker, we can all agree that the manner in which this demolition was done was totally dehumanizing, and people, executors, actually committed atrocity of highest order we have ever witnessed in history of this country, Mr. Speaker. Sir, when you look at the issue, we have been apportioning blame to very few people who are not even in any way under any capacity of assigning land, like the current member of parliament of Mavoko, Mr. Speaker. We know it is county government which gives absolutely everything, licenses when you are doing a construction, and this issue started way back 2013. We know who was governor, we know who was the minister of land, we know the people who were in government, and without even apportioning a lot of blame on current leadership, Mr. Speaker, we need to know how and when and who executed this matter from the beginning, Mr. Speaker. Without even answering a lot of questions, we know the people who are supposed to rather answer this question the Mavoko people actually faced, Mr. Speaker. Let me say, Mr. Speaker, I witnessed this matter, and I personally have a relative who lives there. The child, or rather the pupil, the students have been going to school there. They are waiting for exams, and we have to see a way of relocating them to other schools, Mr. Speaker. And we have not even seen our president actually giving us directives on how these people are going to be compensated, on how these students who their school has already been demolished, how they are going to sit for exams, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what do you expect from our parents who has invested on these students for almost 8 years, and watch just these students, the education going to the drains? You can't expect that student even to sit an exam and pass, Mr. Speaker. This is atrocity, and we need to deserve condemnation of highest order, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker,
are you saying any school was demolished?
Their schools were demolished, churches were demolished.
Public or private schools?
Private schools were there. Okay. And Mr. Speaker, some of these students actually are going to sit for exams from 6th of next month, Mr. Speaker. We need to find a way of how we are going to compensate them, even in exam marking, Mr. Speaker. Churches were demolished, mosque, and many other structures, Mr. Speaker. I wish we benchmarked on how NSSF back in Tasia handled the situation when the land was actually invaded, and I'm one of the owners of the Tasia plots, Mr. Speaker. We bought the land illegally, but Mr. Speaker, NSSF
Did I hear you right? You said you did what?
Yes, we got the land illegally, of course.
How
The
did you
title
get-
belonged to NSSF, but NSSF reasoned together with the Kenyans. We came and found out that it is not worthy actually to demolish the existing buildings. You can have a way of negotiation instead of demolishing. Now we have gone back to zero. Mr. Speaker, who is gaining here? Is it the president? Is it the government? Is it, we are just losing everybody. And when I saw people actually who were crying out there, you cannot even apportion and say that they voted for Kenya Kwanza, they voted for Azimio. This issue needs to be totally depoliticized and come back and find a solution on how we are going to issue these Kenyans with at least compensation, Mr. Speaker. And this should come directly to the Ministry of Land, because they are the ones who issued title deeds, Mr. Speaker, without arguing this. And let us not only...
Timothy Torite.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute on this very, very important motion that has been brought before the floor of this House. Honorable Speaker, to begin with, when we're in this House, Honorable Speaker, our fundamental role is to represent our people. And it doesn't matter where those people come from. We are here to represent the citizens of this country from every corner of this republic. Honorable Speaker, the issue of Mavoko and the matters of evictions in Kenya indicts the entire land regime in Kenya. Honorable Speaker, there is something called sanctity of ownership, sanctity of title deeds in this country. Honorable Speaker, it puts us off when someone goes to the Ministry of Lands, does a search, is told the land is valid, proceeds to construct property. Thereafter, that person is told that that property is not properly documented. Yet we have only one ministry in Kenya, the Ministry of Lands, the ministry that issues title deeds. Honorable Speaker, these are innocent Kenyans. These are Kenyans that have borrowed loans. There are Kenyans that have gone to the banks, they have secured their loans in banks. There are Kenyans that have built this property using mortgages. Thereafter, they are evicted in the pretext that the entire process of ownership of the land was not proper. Honorable Speaker, I want to speak for those people because it doesn't matter whether I'm in this side of aisle or the other side. The issue of protecting our people cuts across. Honorable Speaker, some people must be held responsible. If they are in this house, then those individuals must be held responsible. Honorable Speaker, if they are in the lands ministry, then those individuals must be held responsible. Honorable Speaker, there has been a joke going around this country that if you need to buy, imagine the level of mistrust that we've had in the Ministry of Lands. There's a joke going around that if you want to buy land in Kenya, one, you consult a lawyer. Number two, you consult a surveyor. Number three, you consult a land valuer. And then number four, you consult a drunkard. Honorable Speaker, that is an insult, an indictment to the land regime in this country. So, Honorable Speaker, those people and this government, we must see a way of compensating those people. It doesn't matter. Those people must be taken care of because it is unfortunate that innocent Kenyans their properties can be demolished. Children are not going to school. Churches are being brought down. Honorable Speaker, I am in this side, but I am here to represent and defend the interest of every Kenyan, irrespective of where they come from. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity once again. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is unfortunate that over 25,000 people have been affected by this. And when we are here, we should be human and feel for others. It is unfortunate that this case has been going on for many years, and this is the time that the court has ruled that the land belongs to East African, Portland, Cement, whatever. And that means the innocent Kenyans have never known the truth of the matter. And matters to do with land, Mr. Speaker, you know very well, that it has affected so many Kenyans, so many people, including many of us here. We have been conned by people, and as you think of purchasing a land and growing your wealth, you land into the wrong hands. And that has happened to these innocent Kenyans. And as I stand, I support them and I feel for them. And especially women, children, school-going children, and the many churches that have been destroyed, the mosques that have been destroyed. And Mr. Speaker, if we cannot talk about the cartels that are behind this, then we are not doing justice. Even if we stand here, we debate, we make noise. We must call out the cartels. We must call out the corruption that has been going on in matters, land, and title deeds. Mr. Speaker, everybody knows that you may be holding your title today, and another person will also have almost a similar copy. And a time comes when you realize that the title that you are holding has somebody else is also claiming ownership over it. And that is why, as a country, we have been suffering because of corruption. And today, in this government, our Kenya Kwanza government, our president has said that he will not condone any corruption. And that is why today, even as we speak as members of parliament, as we stand up for these innocent Kenyans, as we fight for justice to happen, we must also call out cartels, people who are behind this. Mr. Speaker, I know very well, even if I'm not, I don't know a lot about this particular land and what is happening around there. I am sure there are faces behind this corruption. There are faces behind this chaos. And innocent Kenyans are sleeping out. Imagine the season that we are in. It is raining. People are suffering. And children are supposed to sit for their exams. And I'm sure expectant mothers have nowhere to lay their heads. And that is why, as leaders today, we should condemn what has happened and also stand up for the innocent Kenyans so that justice can be found. However, those who are behind this, from the Ministry of Lands to the people who are there and leading these people, the corrupt leaders who are there, must be called out so that we know the cause of the problem. When something happens, people blame the government. Why should Kenya Kwanza government be blamed today when this has been going on for over 10 years? We should know the root cause. We should know what happened at that particular time for this to happen today. So even if we say that it has happened in the presence of Kenya Kwanza, the root cause of this problem must be known. And that is why we are calling all the people concerned, so that they can bring out the individuals behind this, so that this can be known to others, that it is not the government, but it is the cartels who are behind this and who are putting them in this situation. Mr. Speaker, it is my prayer that one time, all the cartels in this country, because it is not only on land matters, there are cartels everywhere. The other day we were talking about pyramid scheme, and everybody is crying. Kenyans are losing their monies. Kenyans are suffering because of cartels who are trying to steal from them and who are trying to frustrate their efforts. I stand with these people and I pray that we will soon bring out the cartels and the corrupt leaders in this particular game. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Naomi, and thank you for your tone of address. It's very healing. The Honorable Fatuma Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I stand here to sympathize with the people of Mavoko. Mr. Speaker, my sister who has just spoken said that this problem was caused by the past regime. But I would like to inform the House that when you become a member of parliament, you don't run away from mistakes that happened before, if there were mistakes. The current government should not look for handshake problems, claiming that these things happened during handshake. That is irresponsible statement. That is inconsiderate of those people who are suffering, who lost their money. I saw a mother with a one-day-old child crying and cursing the government. Which government does she know? The government that took oath today is the government that she knows. So we cannot run away from this. Instead of the government doing what they did, the majority who were there, who owned that land with those title deeds that they have today, did not know that that land was grabbed or not. And so as a government, we should have looked into how do we solve the problem. Because now the houses are down. These people are suffering. Then the person who claims to own the land comes and says that we want to sell the land to you and we are giving you the first priority. Mr. Speaker, that is mockery and ungodly. If such a scenario was supposed to be considered, then they should have done that before they demolished the houses. So what they are doing now is just adding insult to injury. And these kind of things are going to happen. Next day we'll hear of another house. Next year we'll hear of another home. We'll hear of another land that was grabbed or not grabbed. The bottom line is, as the government sits down and demolishes these houses, how about those other houses that are there and the title deeds are 3 or 4 out there? This reminds me of a school in Langata Primary. And I remember there's a hotel next to it. And I remember there was a story that that land did not belong to the owner. What happened to that situation? That hotel was not brought down. That school was not compensated when their children or the parents, when their children were tear gassed. They were not compensated. But the same people are sitting in the office. The trend here is, I was supposed to declare, I come from Nyatike sub-county, I own a clean land. I live in Lavington, I own a mortgaged house. So I have no interest in Mavoko. But I am saying, when it affects you, you defend. When it doesn't affect you, you throw emotion and tantrums and blame the previous government. Those who have spoken here spoke with emotions and threats and bad words and unsympathetic words because their houses were not brought down. But let us behave human, let us behave godly, and think of these people. We cannot say that they will not be compensated. We did not grab their land. No, as a government, we swore to protect the Kenyans. Those who had houses there are Kenyans. So is the person who claims to own the land today. So what should be done in case this government does not know that there is something called arbitration? We should bring the person claiming the land and the other person saying he has a right title deed and arbitrate and see the way forward so that majority of Kenyans do not suffer. And if I may use, there is a rule of the jungle that the majority win. I think the person who claims to own the land today is one. Majority were demolished. In such a scenario, we should listen to the majority. The economy is hurting already, and we cannot just give one person priority over poor, innocent Kenyans. Let us be sympathetic with the Mavoko people, and as a government, you inherit whatever you got from the previous regime because you did not come with any constitution. You're the same constitution you found is the same constitution that will guard wananchi. So I beg this government to consider the Mavoko people and compensate them. It was not their mistake. It was a mistake of the government. And the government is one. The government is not Uhuru Kenyatta or Ruto. The government is not Moi or Kibaki. The government is the government of Kenya. So take responsibility and compensate these people. And again, guard future issues not to happen again. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, today we are sitting up to 9. And going by your numbers here, I can assure you, you are all going to speak. I'll even add some of you time. So don't worry. Honorable Kakai.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for giving this opportunity. And first, my sympathy to the affected families. What is important, Mr. Speaker, I've been seeing how casual the legislators have been discussing this matter. Having worked with refugees across the globe, first it starts with IDPs, and it ends up to be with refugees. This is a real grave matter. And in the interest of public good, majority are affected. And many of us, in fact, all of us, we swore to protect our people who actually elected us. We've seen schools destroyed. We've seen even churches destroyed. We as a nation, how do we expect even the Almighty to bless us if we are even bringing down His churches and mosques, an example? The many children, the women that have lost their home. It's very painful, Mr. Speaker, to get to your home where you had your bedroom and you can't even identify it. And we are sitting here with posturing, some political posturing, forgetting that when we sit here, we should legislate, we should debate for prosperity. Because today, you are sitting on that side of the aisle, tomorrow you're on this side. So I would like us to really, in the spirit, even on bipartisan, I expected that the majority leader, when he was seated here, not to take a certain position, which actually sort of despises the humanitarian component. Number two, this same government, including myself who sits on the housing committee, there is a drive to increase housing, and we are talking about affordable housing. These are Kenyans who have actually taken loans. They have put their homes there. Some of them are retiring. Where do you expect those Kenyans to go? Why kill them that early? And I think it's unfortunate that the majority leader has stepped out. There is a prominent verse that he normally uses, come reason together, especially during the campaign time. How comes this time we could not reason together? What was difficult to sit down as the national or county government with the affected persons and reason together? Now, most important also, Mr. Speaker, ignorance has got no defense. If the county government has been enjoying the taxes that have been collected from these Kenyans, it means that there is a document that is binding the sanctity of title. So again, the persons responsible, the governor who was there then, the lands minister who were there then, we talked about digitizing the title deeds. What happened? They should be held responsible. We want to create a responsible leadership, and to me, Mr. Speaker, sir, we should use this opportunity to set an example, because this has happened in Mavoko. Tomorrow it will happen in Kiminini, it will happen in Lugari, it will happen in any other place in this republic. So we should use this to set an example such that the public good is protected. And by saying this, Mr. Speaker, I do not mean that I actually condemn land grabbing, I condemn cartels, but we must use this as an example so that it doesn't happen again. Otherwise, if we continued like this, we've created IDPs, our own country on this continent that is creating its own IDPs, yet we are respected within the continent as a country that really respects democracy. But we are creating IDPs, and historically, where you've seen refugees are created from the first step of creating IDPs. Please, let's work in the interest of the public, but let's also hold the ones who are there responsible in the interest of the public good. And what I mean is all the people must be, they must be sort of compensated, all the people who are affected. And the first person is the government, the county government of Machakos, because they've been collecting taxes. This is not the time for us to take political posturing. We must come together as legislators, as leaders, with that humanity, and make sure that Kenyans don't suffer anymore from this, and we should stop it so that it doesn't happen again in this republic. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Honorable Catherine Omanyo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is staggering to just watch families that have worked, fought very hard to the hilt to also own something in their mother nation. We have seen clips of some Kenyans abroad who even work on shoddy jobs and deposit or bring money at home so that when they finally, their contract is over and they finally decide to come back home, they can come home to something. But these are
Minority Whip.
The Kenyans who have
I hope you are not leaving.
lost their houses in a second, having built a house for years, and the Kenyans whose houses have been brought down, the churches, every other institution that has been brought down, it is the land grabbers who sold to them. These land grabbers are connected to the land registrar. The land registrar is connected to the county planners. County planners are connected to every other person who gives that stamp called stamp duty. Even now, Kenya itself, for them to get that money, they know that this tax is coming from this parcel of land. And finally, the title deeds are issued. So it is a cartel. One person knows the other and knows the other, and if there is a commission, everybody has their percentage. The Kenyans whose houses have been brought down are not land grabbers. So where are these land grabbers? And what has happened to them? Are these Kenyans safe where they are? Are these Kenyans ever going to get back what they have built for their entire life? Are these banks that we hear some of them are still paying a loan going to give them some sympathy and not go for auction? And even if they went for auction, what are they going to? Because if they take a loan against that house, then it is the house that has been brought down. I just weep in my heart and hope that this government will quickly go dash into this and help these Kenyans who are now IDPs or refugees, because they are now like strangers in Jerusalem, in their own nation. It really is a heavy thing seeing one of our colleagues here with his sunny disposition, trying to give us other things, playing around, joking around. I'm talking about our majority leader. I do not know if he has a home somewhere. If one day his home will be brought down, I think he will change how he talks. Mr. Speaker, as a leader in this nation, wherever anything like this happens, it is good that leaders don't rush into wanting to revenge. It is good that leaders sit down and talk in cohesion, in peace, so that people cannot lose.
Order,
it should be win-win.
Honorable Manyo, your time will be added. What is out of order?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to raise Order 35, that there is no quorum in this honorable house. So
we can't hear you.
Just a minute, what is your name?
Honorable George Sunkuya.
Sunkuya, I cannot see you, so I cannot notice you are.
Thank you, but I am
so I've not recognized you. Just sit down. Just sit down. Just sit down.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just said as leaders, whenever we hear somebody has bought land, maybe it was illegally done or legally done, these people have settled with their families. A child who's going to do their exams in a few couple of days, knowing that I'll be going to nowhere, or in a small one room somewhere where she was used to her own bedroom maybe, or we are going now to stay with our aunt. The life is no longer the way it used to be. We are affecting our future leaders, our future generation, by our actions that come because of some revenge or something. We do not want leaders with a lot of vengeance. Let us leave vengeance to God. But these Kenyans must be compensated, and a decision needs to be made to at least get them back to their feet so they can continue giving back to the nation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Mavoko. You will.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Speaker.
And let me just declare that I want to give lady members first priority because of those other obligations you need to go to. So male honorable members will need to bear with us for some time. Honorable Mavoko.
Asante Mheshimiwa Speaker. Mheshimiwa Speaker, tunajua katika taifa letu tuna ile mambo tunaita dhulma za kihistoria za mashamba. Na mimi naamini kabla hiyo Portland kuwa na umiliki wa ardhi ile lazima ilikuwa ya wenyeji, na najua hata tukichakura tutajua ya kwamba hawakuipata katika hali ambayo inastahiki. Na mimi niseme, Mheshimiwa Spika, serikali ya nyuma iliyokuwa ni serikali ya Mheshimiwa Uhuru Kenyatta, na pia rais alikuwa naibu wa rais, kulikuwa na kesi kama hiyo kule Likoni ya shamba la Waitiki, na kwa wakati huo viongozi waliwaita wakaazi ambao walikuwa wameingia katika shamba lile la Waitiki, na wakaweza kufanya mazungumzo na wakatoa fidia kadhaa, na serikali ikatoa fidia nyingine, na wananchi hawakuweza kufurushwa. Kwa nini Mavoko walifurushwa na kugandamizwa katika haki zao za kimsingi? Jambo la pili, juzi na jana Mheshimiwa naibu wa rais tuliona akitetea wakaazi wa Nyandarua ambao walikuwa wanataka kufurushwa na shirika la railway. Alisimama kidete na akasema hawatafurushwa na watazungumzia mazungumzo hayo. Kwa nini Mavoko waliweza kufurushwa katika hali ambayo si hali ya hadhi na sio hali ya utu? Nataka niseme serikali iko na haki ya kuwapatia Wakenya makazi, iko na haki ya kuwapatia Wakenya elimu. Vipi makazi yatabomolewa? Vipi shule zitavunjwa? Vipi makanisa pia yatavunjwa, na hali tuko na haki ya kuabudu katika katiba yetu ambayo tuko nayo sasa kama serikali? Kwa hakika nimemnukuu sana Mheshimiwa Rais wakati alipokuwa akifanya kampeni akisema ya kwamba serikali yake haitagandamiza Mkenya kwa njia ya kumfurusha kiholela katika mashamba. Vipi sasa amepata kura, amekuwa baba wa taifa la Kenya, anagandamiza Wakenya katika hali kama hii ambayo si ya kimsingi? Tumeona kina mama wanavyopata shida, tumeona watoto wanavyopata shida. Tunaambiwa hata kama ni kufurushwa, yani njia ambayo inatakana ifuatwe ni njia ambayo italinda hadhi ya Mkenya, italinda heshima ya Mkenya, italinda maisha ya Mkenya, italinda usalama wa Mkenya. Swali ni kwamba kulikuwa na usalama? Hakuna. Tear gas tuliona zikirushwa kila mahali. Je, kulikuwa na hadhi? Swali ni kwamba hakukuwa na hadhi. Vyombo vilirushwa, kila kitu kilikuwa kinaangushwa kila mahali, na hakukuwa na hadhi yoyote ambayo ilifuatwa. Kwa hivyo nataka kusema, Mheshimiwa Spika, sisi tunasikitika kama taifa ikiwa sasa Portland Summit wanasema wanataka kuuza ardhi wakati wamefanya hasara kubwa kama ile, kuwatia dhiki wa Kenya, ambapo hata kuna Mkenya mmoja aliweza kujitoa uhai kwa sababu ya kufikiria gharama ambazo wametumia katika kuwekeza kujenga makaazi na familia yake. Jamani, sisi kama Wakenya tunazungumzia kuwapa watu makazi, alafu kwa upande mwingine tunavunja makazi ambayo wameyajenga kwa miaka mingi katika hali ngumu sana, hali ya kuchukua maloni, kuchukua ile Kiingereza tunasema mortgage. Kina mama wamecheza vyama, wamecheza katika vikundi vyao kupata pesa, alafu kwa siku moja tu wanakuja kufanyiwa dhulma kama hiyo. Sisi kama taifa la Kenya lazima tujue sheria ni msumeno, inakata mbele na nyuma. Haiwezi kuwa sheria tu itafanya wakati ni Mavoko, lakini kwa sehemu zingine sheria itakuwa inaangalia mkondo mwingine. Jamani, leo ni Mavoko, kesho itakuwa ni sehemu nyingine ya taifa la Kenya. Hawa Wakenya tawapeleka wapi wakati uchumi wa Kenya ni mgumu? Mwananchi anashindwa kupata chakula, mwananchi anashindwa kupeleka mtoto shule. Leo anakuja kubomolewa nyumba ambayo amegharimu karibu milioni 20 na kwenda juu. Jamani, hilo alikuwa suluhisho. Sasa wanarudi wanasema watauza hayo mashamba. Kwa nini serikali haikufikiria tangu mwanzo? Anayetoa stakabadhi za shamba ni nani? Ni Wizara ya Ardhi. Wizara ya Ardhi ni nani? Ni serikali. Kwa nini hawakujua kama kulikuwa na utepetea na kulikuwa na ufisadi na wakafuatilia jambo hilo kabla ya kufurusha Wakenya katika hali ngumu kama hiyo na kuweza kutesa kina mama na wanafunzi walioko pale? Ni masikitiko makubwa sana, lakini mimi nasema lazima Wakenya wasome, kwa sababu Wakenya wengi huwa hawataki la kuambiwa, wanataka la kuona. Wameona sasa Kenya Kwanza ilipowafikisha. Sisi tuliwaambia ingekuwa ni Mheshimiwa Raila.
Honorable Susan Kiamba, as Honorable Ann Murata prepares, and Honorable Esther Passaris.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me time to contribute to this very important motion. First and foremost, I would wish to empathize with the families in Mavoko for what has happened to them.